terms of looking at what our Government of Alberta is about, there are 5 clear priorities that our GOA has to deliver. And one of them is increasing Alberta's quality of life by becoming the leader in the areas of healthcare, education, and skills training. What we do within the Government of Alberta touch upon all lives of all immigrants, and we try to really hard to coordinate and align with each other in supporting Albertans. Each of our ministry has a mandate letter, and some of our provincial colleagues like Pat and Angela and Christine and Mark sitting here all know about our mandate letters. So looking at those mandate letters that will basically specify the areas that require our dedicated efforts and focus. For example, our work intersect quite significantly with human services. For example, work with key stakeholders to develop plan and programs for a skilled and adaptable workforce that supports a sustainable and prosperous economy. And we would also need to work with stakeholders to ensure that Alberta is able to attract and retain workers from Canada and abroad. So listening to Natasha and Diane talking about the emphasis on pre-arrival is one of the things that we're also looking at and looking for some collaborative opportunities there. And within human services, they're really looking at how the information sharing practices can be improved within government and with service agencies to support the best outcomes for the health, education, and safety of children and families. And we also work very closely with Innovation Advanced Education, as well as intergovernmental international relations, with our ongoing collaboration with other jurisdictions, including the federal government, which is also essential to ensure that Alberta builds a permanent and sustainable workforce. Alberta is taking a multi-pronged approach to build a permanent labor force and address persistent labor and skills shortages. Training Albertans, encouraging other Canadians to move to Alberta, and immigration are all important pieces of our government strategy to meet Alberta's unique labor market needs and secure Alberta's and Canada's economic future. So in terms of looking at some of the policies that we're working on, some of you have probably been involved in the social policy framework. And our work is definitely being supported by a number of those policies, including the social policy framework. In terms of its vision, everyone contributes to making our communities inclusive and welcoming, and everyone has the opportunities to fulfill their potential and benefit from our thriving social, economic, and cultural life. This plays an important role in supporting the integration of newcomers if they feel that the communities are welcoming and inclusive. Integration really is a two-way street. It should allow newcomers to develop a sense of belonging while enabling mainstream institutions and community members to better understand the contributions of newcomers and the challenges that they face. And some of the outcomes from the social policy framework indicate that Albertans are safe, healthy, secure, and resilient, that they are lifelong learners, they're being included, active, and engaged. Then it's important to ensure that the systems are also aligned, accessible, complementary, balanced, and accountable and sustainable. Another piece of policy that we're looking at is our current immigration policy that has been released since 2005. Is called Supporting Immigrants and Immigration to Alberta. It provides some strategic direction for the coordination and implementation of policies and to help build Alberta's labor force through immigration. As indicated by our Deputy Minister, it is really a joint effort with several Government Alberta departments and external stakeholders to address Alberta's need for immigrants. It is one key element in responding to the province's need for an adaptable workforce. It also specified strategies, programs, and services to support immigrants and immigration to Alberta. This, I know that it's been almost 10 years. The 9-year-old strategy was successful in attracting and retaining a record number of immigrants coming to Alberta, and has far exceeding our original attraction and retention goals as well. However, significant changes have occurred in Canada's immigration system since we first launched our strategy. As we have heard earlier from Diane, is that the federal government is currently working on a comprehensive reform of Canada's immigration system, such as the new express entry that will be coming into effect in the new year, and the recent policy shift in relation to the temporary foreign worker program. These changes, combined with the successes of our original policy and Alberta's projected labor needs, require that we look more closely at our own approach to immigration to help us capitalize on the emerging opportunities. So in terms of our current settlement services that we fund, many of you who are sitting here know about our province's integrated service program that we work in partnership with Citizenship Immigration Canada. And this particular program basically is to provide funding to nonprofit immigrant serving agencies to deliver settlement services such as newcomer outreach, orientation, employment readiness, and so forth. And last year, according to our statistics, and I know that Diane has provided a lot of stats on her presentation, is that we did serve over about 30,000 newcomers. And our funding also provides support for those newcomers who are Canadian citizens and experiencing a number of barriers that prevent them from being settled and integrated within the communities as well. So in order for us to have an informed understanding of the changing needs and realities of newcomers, 2 surveys have been conducted. One of them is our Alberta Settlement Outcome Survey, and the other one is the National Settlement Outcome Survey. And I know that later on in the research portion of the presentation, there will be more information that talks about the focus group findings of the Alberta Settlement Outcome Survey. The major difference between the 2 surveys is that the Alberta survey also collected information on newcomers' perception on the settlement services that are available to them, with questions about service use and non-use. And there are lots of similar goals and close alignment between the 2 surveys, and there are also similar challenges as well. And I'm just going to go through some of those measures, successes, and challenges. So in terms of looking at the 2 survey results, some of the key measures include experience with settlement service in Alberta, how immigrants are being attached to Alberta and Canada, looking at the economic integration and their outcomes. When we talk about economic, we can't forget about the social integration and outcomes as well as the well-being and life satisfaction. And most importantly of all, as well as looking at the language assessment and the language proficiency, because I think without language, it would be very difficult for the newcomers to settle and integrate, into the communities. And some of the successes that we would like to point out is that, and specifically on the Alberta Settlement Outcome Survey, is that the results indicate that immigrants to Alberta are faring well and feel attached to Alberta and Canada, and with very favorable perceptions of the services available to them. So kudos to a lot of the our colleagues sitting here amongst us with respect to dealing with immigrants and trying to integrate them within the communities. And they also have favorable economic and social outcomes that improve over time. But when we have successes, we also have challenges as well. One of the key observations that emerged was that we need to sort of improve on the information about what services are available and how they can be assessed is at least as important as improving the services themselves. And based on the National Settlement Outcome Survey results, there are 3 specific areas that we also need to focus on. and which are quite similar to the Alberta survey results. Those areas include employment as well as foreign credential recognition, social connections, and the use of official languages, and especially those not in the labor force. So what do all of those things mean to us? I think that, for us to have a system that are in place that can continue to support newcomers, we have several important factors that we need to look at. As mentioned before, we have to take into consideration of our GOA mandates and priorities to ensure that Alberta is in a position to manage the growth and the labor needs, since it is expected that over the next decade, Alberta's labor market will face a shortage of approximately 96,000 across many industries. So in order to respond to the shortage of skilled labor, the Canada Job Grant has just been recently announced earlier this month to help Canadians get the skills they need to succeed in the workplace and to help employers fill job vacancies. And this also creates an opportunity for some of you in supporting Alberta employers and immigrants. There's also a need for us to be looking more closely at our approach in responding to the evolving labor market needs and to facilitate the successful settlement and integration of new immigrants into our workplaces and communities. The survey results would definitely help us identify the gaps that we need to work on both at the provincial level as well as at the national level. With the changes to the federal immigration system, the types of immigrants coming into the province will be different. They may cater to different specific employers with a higher need to have the credentials recognized, and which may lead to the changing needs of immigrants. And our ministry plays an active role in making changes to the way that foreign credential recognitions are assessed and recognized so that we can attract the best and the brightest to the province. And as earlier on, our Deputy Minister has talked a lot about what our FQR plan is about. And besides looking at the learning needs of newcomers and to the importance of getting the credentials recognized, it is also important to support the ESL system to continue to be adaptive and responsive. And we also need to look at the types of programs that can target specific occupation and language training to help newcomers communicate effectively at work. There are different ways of reaching out to the newcomers for language training. It can be in a classroom setting or use of blended approach. But as mentioned by CIC earlier as well, is that the main purpose of having this summit is to prepare for the upcoming calls for proposal from consulting with stakeholders to inform priority setting for the future, and also looking at how we can provide us with all pertinent information about how we can move forward as well. We also need to take into consideration of helping immigrants succeed, which is the federal, provincial, territorial action plan that looks specifically at the 3 areas of priorities. Like earlier, as I mentioned, those are the 3 areas of priorities and focus, looking at employment, language, and social connection. So what does all of this mean to us in terms of looking at the next phase? Do we have a system that takes into all of the key considerations to become more flexible and innovative? Do we need to be a little bit more strategic? And certainly, I know that all of you are looking at the gaps in our current service delivery to look at how do we prioritize the needs and be specific in targeting intended outcomes. So I've heard a lot about what our outcomes are, and not necessarily about outputs. In addition, we need to be collaborative and consider partnerships. So early on, when John talked about the 3 C's, that has been ingrained in our brain about consultation and coordination and collaboration. I think those are all important things to remember. And how do we consider different types of partnerships, as of what Diane and Natasha talked about, between the federal and municipal governments and provincial government, as well as with communities, immigrant serving agencies, mainstream agencies, ethnocultural organizations, and others in the settlement sector. And there are a lot of emphasis also on employers too, and I don't know how many employers are out there in the audience today, but employers are an important factor for us to be considering. But we also know that all employers are very, very busy. So how do we engage employers in a more innovative and strategic way so that we can all work better together in trying to help the immigrants to succeed within the communities? So the information gathered here will also help us to inform how we can move forward in the future. And I really look forward to hearing more about what you have to offer in terms of your insights and your wisdom and your skills and experience and moving the sector forward. Thank you.